Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lions Den with another news and commentary. You know, ladies and gentlemen, this is why we have so much problems in police across the country, because of those police unions. So let me get this straight. These 4 officers right here you see on your screen killed George Floyd in front of not just nationwide audience, a worldwide audience. And now all of a sudden, the Minneapolis police unions are working on getting all 4 of those officers their jobs back. I'm going to tell you like this, guys. If the union bring these 4 officers back on the force, getting their jobs back, you thought the city of Minneapolis riots is that bad when George Floyd was killed. It's going to get worse when they bring those officers back on the force. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and read this article, which is from NBC News. It says, shortly after 4 Minneapolis police officers were fired over the death of George Floyd, the president of the city's police union wrote a letter to his members signaling that he was working to restore the officers' jobs. You see, this is why the police union need to be shut down. For that reason. And they know that what these officers did to George Floyd was wrong and unacceptable. But yet, if they're in the union, they can get their job back like that. If they don't get their jobs back by that same precinct, they'll get their jobs back to another precinct. This is how the police union works, ladies and gentlemen. And it's so outrageous of how they treat. I mean, if they brought their jobs back, people, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. It will be a big slap in the face to George Floyd's family. I guarantee you. It's going to be a major slap in the face to the Floyd's family. It will be a major lawsuit. And you think what happened in Minneapolis when they had the riots was really bad? Wait until they bring those 4 officers back on the force. It's going to get a lot worse. So let's move on. It says Crow's union has had great success in getting police officer terminations reversed by appealing them to arbitrators. Since 2006, 8 Minneapolis police firings have been decided by arbitrators, and all but 2 resulted in the officers getting their jobs back. According to an NBC News review of records from the Minnesota Bureau of Mediation Services. 1 officer punched a handcuffed man in the face multiple times, breaking his nose. Another pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge stemming from an altercation with his wife. A third, Jason Anderson, was fired, reinstated, then fired again after a new incident of allegedly kicking a teenager in the head that still didn't end Anderson's career. An arbitrator went on to reinstate him for the 2nd time. I'm going to stop you right there again. You know, they forgot about another officer, which basically they excluded, though. Remember Muhammad Noor, a Minneapolis police officer that was accused of killing a white woman? And he's serving, 12 years in prison for that? And yet they're not working on they're not really working on him getting his job back. Isn't that something? Now you have these 4 officers who's accused of killing George Floyd, and now you got police unions now want to work on getting their jobs back, but not Muhammad Noor. See, that is so funny, ladies and gentlemen. So it shows you how corrupt the police department really are. Because basically Muhammad Noor is serving a 12-year prison sentence of killing a white woman, accidentally, by the way. But yet, when you kill George Floyd, we're going to work on getting their jobs back. No big deal. This is a damn shame. It's really a damn shame the way you look at it, because it shows how favoritism the police department really are. who's getting their jobs back and who distanced themselves from the job. And it's really interesting, and I'm going to continue reading this article in a second, but it's really interesting that Muhammad Noor is spending 12 years or more in prison for killing a white woman from Australia. But yet these 4 officers we saw on video of putting a knee in the back of George Floyd's neck, killing him. And yet they're going to get their jobs back. But distance himself from Muhammad Noor. Okay. All right, let's move on, people. It says that case might be more egregious than most, but it's not at all far-fetched in the world of law enforcement labor, said Anthony Skugman, executive director of the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association. It's maddeningly, and the general public should be outraged. The Minneapolis Police Union did not respond to a request for a comment on its current stance on the officers. Minneapolis is among many municipalities across the country where union labor agreements and state employment laws make it difficult to fire police officers. The issue has come under fresh scrutiny in the wake of Floyd's killing. The 46-year-old black man's death in police custody has focused attention on a wide range of policing matters, including a lack of national registry of officers' misconduct and the obstacles in discipline problems cops. Experts say arbitration played an outsized and often overlooked role in saving the jobs of officers accused of serious misconduct. I would say this is one of the most important accountability issues, said Stephen Rushin, a Loyola University of Chicago professor who published a study of arbitration in 2018. If you can't remove bad officers, it's going to be really hard to improve a police organization. In Minnesota, as in many other states, members of public employee unions have the right to appeal in any form of discipline to binding arbitration. That's interesting, because y'all didn't have a right to help Muhammad Noor file his appeal. That's really interesting, ladies and gentlemen, because it sounds to me that these 4 officers didn't do anything wrong according to the union. And killing George Floyd on national television in front of everybody. You put a knee in the back of a man's neck and died, and now basically they have a chance to get back their jobs. Where Muhammad Noor, who's serving almost 12 years or more in prison for accidentally shot a white woman in the chest, killing her, and they distanced themselves from Muhammad Noor in a second. So it's really showing, ladies and gentlemen, how corrupt and how double standard the Minneapolis police really are. Because basically you distance yourself from Muhammad Noor to help him get his job back, or let alone get released from prison. But yet these 4 officers that killed George Floyd, yeah, let's help them get them jobs back. Not a problem. Wow. Let me continue reading this article. It said, presented with a pool of 7, each side takes turns striking a name under only one remains. The arbitrator will then hold a closed-door hearing and accept written briefs. A ruling is typically made within 30 days and could amount to upholding the discipline, reducing it, or throw it out entirely. Some experts says the selection of arbitrators insensitized them to rule half of the time in favor of the unions and the employee half of the time in favor of the employers in order to keep getting chosen. Studies done on the Minnesota arbitration system back up part of the claim. The ruling of police firing since 2006 split just about down the middle. Stephen Bedford, an arbitrator and authority on labor law, said it makes sense that arbitrators will maintain close to an even record given the complexity of this case. The cases that come to arbitration tend to be the difficult ones. Bedford, a University of Minnesota law professor. Most arbitrators are lawyers who specialize in labor issues, before said, but their ranks also includes human resources professionals and business managers. Dave Bicking, a former member of the Minneapolis Civilian Police Review Authority, said he believes the problem lies not with the arbitrators, but with the police department's history of doling out discipline in an inconsistent fashion. Anytime the police department tries to discipline someone, the union can come up with half a dozen cases of someone who did worse and got no discipline at all, said Bicking, who is now a board member of the Minneapolis-based advocacy group, Communities United Against Police Brutality. What do you know now? You can't even discipline anyone because you never discipline anyone. It's a catch-22. The Minneapolis Police Union said only a small number of cases go to arbitration, roughly 2 a year, and it's rejected the false narrative that our union defends any officer for any reason. The system of workplace justice, which is closely akin to our criminal justice system in many respects, requires that all public employees, even police officers, have the opportunity to contest discipline before a neutral third party, Cheryl Smith, vice president of the Minneapolis Police Federation, said in a statement to reporters issued on Tuesday. The most recent Minneapolis case involved officers Pete Brazel, who was fired in February 2019. Brazel was caught on camera in 2016 repeatedly punched the face of a drunken man who was handcuffed and lying on his back. The victim had been acting belligerently at a bar and had kicked Brazel while handcuffed, according to arbitrators' report. Then I placed my knee on his chest, delivered 3 to 4 strikes in his face, Brazel told an internal affairs officers, the report says. The victim suffered a broken nose and other facial injuries, according to reports. The arbitrators overturned the termination and instead order a 2-week suspension. Now, isn't that something? In his ruling, the arbitrator cited the fact that Brazel was placed on leave following the incident, but was then brought back as a training officer prior to his termination. This pre-discharge experience cannot be ignored, the arbitrator wrote. It does indicate that Brazel has the ability to handle a police officer's duties and responsibilities. Derek Chauvin, the Minneapolis police officer seen on video pressing his knee on Floyd's neck for nearly 8 minutes, has been fired and charged with second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter. 3 other former officers, Toe Thao, J. Alexander King, and Thomas Lane, were charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder and manslaughter. A criminal charge and even a guilty plea does not automatically preclude an officer from being reinstated. Officers Murtal Abdulkadir was fired in 2011 after he was charged with felony assault for an alleged attack on his wife. She told police he punched her in the abdomen and hit her with the butt of his gun. And an arbitrator report says, but she later recanted, and Abdulkadir pled guilty to a misdemeanor disorderly conduct charge. An arbitrator ruled in favor of the officer and reduced his punishment to a 30-hour suspension, citing a flawed investigation into the incident. Then there's the case of Jason Anderson. He was fired in 2009 after he got into a fight with his girlfriend that resulted in a misdemeanor assault charge. She ultimately recanted and the charge was dismissed. So I'm going to stop you right there. So I wonder what the officers did to make the girl recant their stories. Did they threaten them? Did they offer them money to recant? You never know what these officers doing to the person's spouses. You never know. An arbitrator ordered him reinstated after concluding there was insufficient evidence to support the assault allegations. Again, you never know. they may bribe her or they may threaten her. Either way you look at it, something happened to recant the story of what really happened to her, which is ridiculous. Anderson was fired again in 2010 for allegedly kicking a youth in the head and body during an arrest, and then lying about the incident. But an arbitrator once again agreed with the union and reduced the termination to a 2-month suspension. The arbitrator concluded that Anderson couldn't be expected to get all the details right when questioned a year after the incident. Anderson, Abdulgir, and Brazil are all still working for the Minneapolis Police Department, a spokesman said. Abdul Qadir and Brazil could not be reached. A message left for Anderson was not returned. Of the 2 firings that were sustained by arbitrators, one was an officer who attacked his wife and had a history of abuse towards women. The other was convicted of disorderly conduct and possession of a pistol while drunk. An arbitrator upheld the officer's termination not because of the conviction itself, but because of the punishment that came with it. He was barred from carrying a firearm for 1 year. The officer lost the ability to carry a firearm, contemporaneously lost the ability to carry out essential job requirements, the arbitration ruled. Efforts to reform the arbitration system are complicated by the fact that it applies to all types of public sector unions members, including teachers and firefighters. Arbitration is designed to relieve the burden of court and provide faster resolution to cases. The system can act as a check on department heads who may make discriminatory personal decisions, but some experts say there's a case to be made for applying different standards to police officers. One officer can create substantially more harm to society than one bad teacher, Russian said. In its statement, the Minneapolis Police Union pointed to research showing that arbitrators uphold police firing as roughly the same rate, just over 50%, as other types of employees. Skugman of the Minneapolis Police Chiefs Association said those statistics reinforced his point that the system is flawed. No, it's not. And I'm going to tell you why it's not flawed. The system is setting up for that reason. And that reason is to cover white cops. And like I told you before, if it was a black cop, they wouldn't do nothing for him. Perfect example, Muhammad Noor. Now, he was sentenced to prison because he felt that someone was doing something to an officer. He threatened for his life, ended up shooting that woman, that white woman in the stomach, killing her. And yet she's serving, what, 12 to 15 years for that? No union didn't come in and say, no, we're going to go ahead and bring him back or get his job back. Nothing. In fact, the union distanced themselves from Muhammad Noor. So you see, this is why I tell everybody, this corrupt police department is basically sided one people to another. And we already know why. Let me go ahead and continue reading this article. It says, imagine running any business and you have to allow 50% of the people you're fired to come back in and work in your business, he said. It sends the completely wrong message that you can do whatever you want and you're not going to get fired, Skugman added. Crow, the Minneapolis Police Union leader, did not respond to requests for a comment. In media interviews this past week, he suggested Chauvin's firing was justified, but stopped short of criticizing the other officers present at the scene. Right now, we cannot make any informed decisions regarding the other officers that do not appear on camera, Crow said on CBS this morning. Bicking, the former member of the Civilian Police Review Board, said he believes it is very likely the office will be reinstated if the union opts to defend them. But the opportunity may never come depending on what happens in court. The question is, will they be convicted, he said. And that's the end of the NBC News article. You know, ladies and gentlemen, if the union, and this is the problem with unions now, they know that they killed George Floyd, but they don't care about that. All they care about their jobs. And they said that, well, you know, they fired them without due process. And if the unions bring their jobs back, watch what I tell you, ladies and gentlemen. If they bring their jobs back, you thought what happened after George Floyd killing with riots in Minnesota is going to be bad. You wait until they bring these 4 officers their jobs back. It's going to get worse in Minneapolis. It's going to be worse in St. Paul. It may be worse in other cities too. And always there's going to be more protests and possibly going to be more riots, because the thing is that you got these 4 officers here that basically some of them are already unionized. So my biggest concern is that the union is going to play this out and give more excuses. Well, they got fired over due process, even though they killed George Floyd on television, on video. But do they care about that? Hell no. Oh, they care about these 4 guys right there, and they want their jobs back. And I'm gonna tell you like this: you better pray it doesn't happen. Because if the union have their way, if they agree with the union said and bring these officers their jobs back, I'm telling you like this: the United States, as we know it, cities across this country, as we know it, will be in flames once again. It'll be riots everywhere in the United States. So y'all let me know what you think about this. Like, click, subscribe, and remember to click the notification bell for all the news and commentary. With that being said, this is Lions Den signing off. Deuces.